Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the MACE Podcast. I'm your host, Marco Macente, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. This is a very special and unique episode as I was able to make it live, recorded in Milan, inviting the amazing Bonnie Low Kramen. Bonnie is a leader instructor of workshops for admin professionals and executive, and she's the author of the book that we're gonna discuss today in the episode, titled Staff Matters. Bonnie is committed to getting to the ultimate workplace, a workplace in which the people want to work, and she's able to share amazing experiences, insights on leadership, communication, business ethics, and business workplace, because she's very committed to paving the way to the ultimate workplace. We were able to organize this event thanks to the help of Carla Stefanut and of Accademia Fiera Milano, the training center of Fondazione Fiera Milano. Actually, we could not choose the best location because Accademia is a place where young talents can build experiences and develop meaningful connections. Accademia Fiera Milano has pursued for over 20 years its aim with the training programs and master courses, which you can find in the podcast descriptions. So we were able to get together to connect with an amazing audience and, of course, to release this episode for all of you. Please enjoy our conversation and stay tuned.
Before introducing Bonnie and before introducing the book, I would like to start the podcast with that video. Okay, so as the video is all about, we're gonna deep dive into Staff Matters, the book that you, Bonnie, wrote and that you launched in February 2023, right?
Right.
So it's gonna be almost 2 years in February 2025. So let me share with the audience a little bit about you. So Bonnie is a leading instructor, is a key opinion leader in the admin profession, I want to say first. So she is a leader instructor when speaking about the courses, the workshops and the trainings that admin professionals should take in order to level up and master the skills that they need in order to be strategic business partner with their executives. She wrote a lot of articles. She made a TEDx talk titled The Real Reason People Quit. So, Bonnie, let's say that you are bringing to the table a lot of insights that 360 degrees touch a lot of topics that matter for our workplace and for the role itself. And the title of this event that we choose together is The Paradox of Perception of the Role of Executive Assistant and Admin Professional, because we know that this is a huge topic that has a global impact, not just on what we do, but also in what we feel about the perception of the role, right? And we know that this is not related to just one industry, this is not related to just one country, but this is related to several industries and is impacted the role worldwide. So can you please share with us where we are on that topic globally? And as per what you see, you discuss and forecast, having written articles and the book as well, is there a new horizon for admin professional to overcome stereotypes and common grounds around the role, or we still are far to get the justice that the role deserves, Bonnie? What do you think?
Marco, thank you for having me once again on your podcast. It's a big question that we decided to take on today. the paradox of perception. The world is very fond of referring to administrative professionals, assistants, as the backbone of companies, the right arms to leaders, the eyes, the ears, the face of the company culture. That's a lot of body parts.
Yeah.
Important body parts and yet so far too many assistants complain of the lack of respect for the role. There seems to be a confusion. There seems to be an ambiguity. There are a lot of titles for the role. So many assistants report that the job description in the post-pandemic workplace, which has complicated things a great deal, they report that job descriptions have changed so drastically, and so what they're sitting with bears very little resemblance to what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
So I think the needle definitely has moved on it. We've made progress. I'm very fond of, like on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it? And I'm, this is my 14th country teaching and I speak with assistants all over the world, and I would give it a 6.5 of where we are in terms of progress. I think before the pandemic, we were probably at a 5.
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, I agree with you. And actually, we met each other in the Brussels at the Video Ultimate Assistant workshop. So I wanted to share this also with the audience. We met actually in your workshops in Brussels, 2019, just a few months before the pandemic.
5 minutes before the pandemic hit.
Yeah. And we were feeling in the room that something was changing, but actually the pandemic actually drove the change that we were seeing.
So, I think there's never been a better time to work as an assistant than right now. But what I also think that there has never been a more complicated time to be working as an assistant than right now. And so what can assistants do about it? And it's so much a part of why I wrote Staff Matters. There are a lot of leadership and management books out there.
Yeah.
But they're about the managers and leaders. I wanted to write the book that brought the other constituencies in these pages. So the interviews were with leaders for sure, but also assistants and HR professionals and recruiters and business school professors in order to do this, in order to enable the reader to walk in other people's shoes. What is it really like? Because if there's confusion about the role, then what's the way to solve that? It's to provide clarity. And the irony of all that is, talk about paradox.
Yeah.
The paradox is that the most organized people on the planet are assistants. They're the ones who actually had one of the easiest times handling the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because of the way assistants think.
Yeah.
We automatically think in plan A, plan B, and sometimes plan C or plan D. That's the way assistants think. So assistants are uniquely qualified to help clarify what this new role is. Because I'm of a mind, that even if you've been doing this work for a really, really long time, decades, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, there are many things about this current workplace in 2024 that feel new. Do you agree?
I agree totally. And something has changed, definitely. Yeah. So even speaking with senior leaders or senior assistants, they see that something has changed, or because the setup of the work has changed, or because the business is changed directly, because the priorities for companies now has changed. So we needed to embrace the change and, of course, make sure that we are aligned with the things that we see.
So what can assistants do about it?
Yeah.
We must have the conversation. This is a very important idea from the book Staff Matters, that I put all these different voices in these pages, and tell their stories, walking, in their words, walking in their shoes. Every person I interviewed said that there are aspects of this workplace that are broken. So if that's true, you think that's true, yeah?
Yes, I totally agree with you.
No one of those groups can fix what's broken alone. And that's what, the video you just showed was about. none of us can do it alone. Assistants know that no real change is going to happen without support from leadership. And there have been disconnects. The pandemic caused such a fracturing and a fragmentation of this workplace that in 2024, I see us all trying to put the pieces back together still. And the way forward is this, is collaboration between those groups, because the silos are not working.
Yeah.
They never have really.
Especially now.
So, and specifically, to finish answering your question, what assistants can do to help move forward is to be sure that they each have a current, detailed, accurate job description that you create, that assistants create on their own, a great LinkedIn profile with terrific headshot and banner image, which, I mean, LinkedIn is brilliant when it comes to that, because that's how we're all communicating.
Yeah.
We're all checking each other out on social media. And lastly, to insist on having a collaborative conversation with HR and with leaders about what does career progression look like for assistants in companies. I believe it is time to have the tough conversation and ask the tough question to leaders, which is, what's the tough question? It's, how do you view assistants in our company?
Yeah.
How valuable is this group really? What is the future that you see for this group?
Yeah.
Assistants of the world need to know the answer to that question as we're trying to navigate AI and all the new technologies that are coming at us at a rapid pace.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, but it's going to require assistants taking a fresh look at what they're actually doing and then having the conversation with leadership about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Bonnie. And this leads me to the second question, because we have shared that assistants should be empowered and should believe in what they do in order to face the change and understand what is the perception is all about. If we wanted to eliminate the paradox, we need to understand what is the perception all about in your team, in your company, your group, because each of these words, small words, actually matter. So that lead me to the second question that, of course, is about the change. We know that in order to drive the change, we should embrace the change, and we should start it from within. So admins should embrace the change and start working on themselves first in order to make sure that we strike the common stereotypes that we dislike. So how can admins get this awareness when reflecting on their role, and what are your suggestions for those who want to start changing the things with their leaders?
Well, can I just say that you're part of this change because you happen to be a male assistant in very female-dominated business. And, you know, still globally, we are 93 to 97% female. And I do not believe you can discuss the profession of being an assistant without talking about the gender issues in play here. And so therefore, one of the longest chapters of the book is chapter 16, called Sex. And it is about gender issues in the workplace. It's about how women work with other women, how women are relating to men. It is silliness to say that it's the same between, it's just not.
It's just not.
You live that every day.
Yes, and I read the book, and it's about the way we grow, right? The society that imposes some kind of...
So we're socialized.
Yes.
As we grow up, how young men are raised and how young women are raised, and then we grow up and we take those behaviors and those attitudes straight into the workplace. So it does bother me when I hear leadership putting the burden 100% on assistants to solve this problem. I think leaders and HR bear a great responsibility for how this is going to go.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the assistants themselves, I think social media has been mostly a blessing, but in some ways it's hurt us. Especially when, you know, there's a lot of excitement made of the immature and unprofessional posts that sometimes hit LinkedIn. And I have zero tolerance for that kind of nonsense. And what I say to every assistant out there who views this as a career, is serious about your profession, wants to earn six figures, to reject the nonsense. There's no time for it. The stakes are too high for it. And it means rejecting a lot of old socialization. But the reality is it's mostly men who are in leadership of companies. And if the women of this profession, if you'll permit me some bluntness, my American bluntness, it would be that it is not serving women to behave in a way that inspires men to view us as silly and can be easily dismissed. That, oh, look at those women who can't get along. It makes me crazy. And that's what I want to see stopped. So, of course, we bear some responsibility for how the future is going to look for this profession. If we want to be taken seriously, if we want to be given titles that are responsive to our actual role,
Work, yeah.
and compensation that's fair, all of that is within our reach if we handle ourselves as professional and respectful people in this profession. How do you view?
Yes, no, I totally agree with you. And I think that we need to stay true to ourselves in order to, mirror externally the things that we don't tolerate, as you mentioned. So bad behaviors, discrepancy between salaries that hit women and men.
Yeah.
So the gender equity, the gender equality is something that in the workplace matter. And if we feel that inside we stand for those values and we stand for those principles, we will be able to see those principles again in the workplace and in the company which we will be working in. So I feel that this starts from us, but it takes a little bit of courage. What do you think?
It takes a lot of courage and self-awareness to understand that to elevate others will elevate ourselves. And that's the way forward in the workplace. And it's very nuts and bolts, in a meeting of a team. If, many women complain, for example, that their idea is taken by another person, whoever that is, whether it's a man or a woman.
Yeah.
And those of us who are in the room can choose to say, oh, Jill, how wonderful that you like Marco's idea. And, Marco, tell us more about that. And that maybe the two of you can work out.
Yeah.
Like we need to support one another.
Yeah.
When women are interrupted, we get interrupted a lot. To be able to say, I'd really love for you to finish that thought, so hold on over there. We can have each other's back more. Frankly, men do that better than women. But I think if we get onto it, that's what chapter 16 is about, is that when we see these behaviors that are not helping this profession, let us choose the other way. Let us choose to align ourselves with people who want what we want, who are the change we want to see in the world. Thank you, Gandhi.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to take other two takeaways that actually come from you, because the audience knows that we made other episodes together that are available in the MACE Podcast library. One thing that you shared with me in your first episode, the former episode that we made, is that principles have no price. So definitely, if we believe in those principles and we want those principles to stay and to be mirrored in our workplace, we need to stick to those principles. And we should not be fearing to lose our job, because actually we should not be fearing to lose ourselves. This is what I recall from our former episode, Bonnie. So I wanted to share it again.
Thank you. That issue, speaking up.
Yeah.
Finding our voices. I mean, at the assistance of the world, it doesn't matter where I am. I say, is it true you see and hear everything? If that's true, that assistants see and hear, even in the hybrid remote world, they're still seeing and hearing everything, reading the emails. They're privy too important information, 2024 is the time to speak up.
Yeah.
To speak up about the things that matter to us. And too many assistants say to me, Bonnie, I can't speak up. I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. I'm afraid of backlash. I'm afraid I'm going to be labeled a troublemaker, that kind of thing. I'm worried that I'm going to, people are going to think that they're not going to like me or that I make waves. And I say, if you keep staying quiet, I'm afraid you're going to lose you.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we discussed in our former episode. And I'm happy that we are bringing again these never-ending, morale and this never-ending takeaway, because it's always true.
But there's great news, because social media is working. I'm talking, as long as people will listen, I'm going to keep talking. But, other leaders, Lucy Brazier and so many others, are consistently raising awareness about what this role is, what it can be, and how it can really transform companies. And that's a good thing. And what's happening is I hear from a lot of assistants, and they are starting to speak up.
Yeah.
It means really taking the risk, but it's happening. I see it happening worldwide, and I feel very optimistic for that reason.
That's a good news. That's a good news. Thanks a lot for sharing with us, Bonnie. So let's move forward, because we spoke about the change, we spoke about the stereotypes, and one of the things that we see, and one of the most debated one, is that sometimes the paradox of perception is a topic that is polarized. So sometimes we feel, as you mentioned, that these kind of issues are outside of our company, are outside of our department. It's not something, because we as humans tend to feel that the issue is not belonging to us, because we try to focus more on what is not an issue. So what do you think about the polarization of the role when getting the extreme of what an admin can do or cannot when partnering with the leaders?
Well, the degree to which you're involved in your executives' lives varies. Some want very little. They don't want you in their inbox. They don't want much interaction at all. And then others at the other end of the spectrum is what I had with Olympia Dukakis, or, the person who wants the right arm, who, in my work with Olympia Dukakis, she wanted me to do absolutely everything that she wasn't able to do. I couldn't learn her lines for her. I couldn't go to her costume fitting for her, although she would have loved for me to do that. And there have been some high-profile cases of assistants getting into serious trouble. The job description of an assistant varies so drastically. So what I say about the polarization is the antidote to that is clarity. It's to shine a light on what's real. What's real, not the nebulous, not the mythical. Lots of people in my work, and I write about it all the time, thought it was just so glamorous working for a movie star. Certainly pieces of it were, 15% of it was. The other percentage was hard work. So, we tend, my message to assistants is, let's stop envying each other. Let's stop comparing one another. Let's stop believing everything we read on Facebook and social media about how great things are. People are struggling, and people are people. The antidote is have a conversation. It's to meet in person at in-person events.
Getting together. Yeah.
To get together, to really to talk to one another, to say, what are your challenges and struggles? We have so much more in common than not. Just so delighted to be recording this in Milan. It's a joy and such a pleasure to have an international meeting of the minds, because that's where we end polarization.
Yeah.
There's no room for polarization.
Yeah.
This workplace is far too complicated to get sucked in and get distracted by those things, that we need to find our common ground. And
Yeah.
that's the answer.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, and I'm so happy to have you here as well, and to keep on discussing such a kind of things because they always matter, as stuff matters, right? As the title of the book is all about. So you are in Milan. We mentioned that, and of course you made this book, and this book is a compelling research of interviews, data that you have collected and you put together in order to get to the ultimate workplace. The ultimate workplace is the workplace in which people want to work. So we know that you are making a tour, so you are visiting other cities in Europe. So my last question for you, Bonnie, in order to wrap up is, how is your tour going, and which are the trends in Europe that you foresee are the most challenging for EAs and PAs in these last years, if any?
Oh, there are challenges for sure. In the post-pandemic world, we have this new phenomenon, and it's called proximity bias. Where we're still... It's still all over the place. Some companies are hybrid, some are fully remote, some are in the office 5 days. And so the continuation of the fracturing is certainly a challenge. And, the data globally shows that women, and we acknowledge that the profession is dominated by women do 6 hours more of house-related chores work a week, and therefore more women than men want to work from home. And the challenge is to be invisible. If you're working from home consistently and you're not on webcam, you're not being heard, then you're invisible, and assistants can't afford to be invisible. That's a challenge, certainly. Yeah. The other challenge, we've been hearing about AI, and everybody's all excited about it. Some people are really afraid of it. Leaders, I can tell you, are very involved in thinking about, well, how much money do we invest in that now? So that money, some of that money is not any longer available for training of assistants. In my career, I have done so many first-time trainings for assistants. First time, I just got another inquiry yesterday. The training for assistants has got to be part of the future. Mm-hmm. The creation of budgets and have annual training budgets, that it can't be begging anymore for training. If you talk about the challenge of the future, it's to stay at the top of our games. And the way to stay at the top of the game is for continuous training. Just like top athletes don't get to stay top athletes without constant training. Well, and my own mother, as you know, was a legal secretary. Back in the day, continued education, professional development was not really needed. It was that old stereotype that you were talking about. Yeah. Of, okay, you're hired. There's your desk. There's your phone. There's your filing cabinet. See you in 25 years or so. Those days are over. They will never be here again. And so the sooner, I believe, our leaders and HR and assistants conclude that training must be a given, and for assistants, for leaders who are reluctant to offer investment money, I say pay for it yourself. The investment in your own development and education is vital for this profession. And progress is happening. More and more company leaders are seeing the value. But it's, true story. I was speaking with a CEO who was telling me, I was making a comment, I'll be in Toronto next week. And he said, I'll be in Toronto next week also. We're doing, and it was, I think, September. And he said, we're doing our 9th leadership training of the year. 9 in 1 year, and they don't offer any training for assistants. It's not right. It's not logical. Yeah. It's just not logical that there is, and I don't begrudge leaders for getting training. My goodness, you saw in the video, the average age is 46 that leaders get their first training in managing people. Yeah. education is the key to the future.
Yeah.
So, looking ahead, the more we can have productive, meaningful conversations where assistants broach HR and leaders about what is my future at the company and what will serve the company. That quick story about Taryn in California.
Please.
So during the pandemic, many assistants' work came to a screeching halt, travel stopped and all of that. And one of our B2A students in California supported the CEO. She went to her CEO and said, so would you pay for me to get my Outlook certification, Microsoft Outlook? And he said, absolutely. She said, that would be a good use of my time. She got it in a matter of weeks. It was several $100s. CEO was like, great. She comes back to him after she gets the certification. She's so excited. And she said, thank you so much for investing in that training. I'd like to do a lunch and learn for the assistants. And he said, great idea. He said, but wait a minute. All 400 of our employees use Outlook. Why don't you open it up to the whole company? And she'd never done training before, but she said, okay. 150 people showed up at that first training. People were so excited. She became like the go-to tech person at the company. She did more lunch and learns. They started paying her for the lunch and learns. She went back to her CEO and asked for more training. His attitude basically is, I'm going to say yes to anything she asks for, because she kept training the rest of the staff. The return on investment was monumental with that. And so talk about the perception. Her reputation soared at the company. She got an increase in salary, and the rest of the staff voted her Employee of the Year because of, and an assistant had never won before.
Yeah.
So it is I hope, like telling Taryn's story, she knows, now she's going to hear that I've told it all over the world. You can link in with her, Taryn G. Accoletto, still working there. And so it's such a win-win, right? When assistants can understand a need, fill the need, and it's a win-win.
Yeah.
It just makes so much sense. If assistants can make moves in that direction, I see it happening all over the world, then our future is going to be more towards an ultimate workplace, I think.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, Bonnie. I totally agree with you, and I have treasured all the insights that you brought tonight, recording this amazing episode, and I'm sure that the audience will treasure those kind of those insights as I will. So thanks a lot for having shared your experiences, your insights. We know that we matter. We know that that stuff matters, and that's why we are here all tonight, in order to bridge the gap and make sure that such a kind of conversation can happen more rather than less.
Thanks, Marco. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks a lot.
To contribute to this important conversation. You're doing important work.
Thanks a lot, Bonnie. I'm so honored, and I'm so proud to have you here, and wishing you a nice stay in Milan, and of course, keep in touch.
Beautiful city. Oh my God.
Thank you.